Empire.
Five things I learned from another wild and wacky week in the NFL action, and then some other important information off the field about where things are headed for the NFL and the NFL Players Association as CBA negotiations are about to start ramping up once again. This is the Football Jones Podcast. What's up, everybody? I am Mike Jones. Thanks for coming back for another episode. You can read me at usatoday.com. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @ByMikeJones. And if you're not already, download and subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends, tell your family. Coming to you once again with another meaty episode of all kinds of stuff going on in the league. Week 6 in the NFL was full of more action. We're starting to see, we're almost to the midway point of the season here. We're starting to see some things. The picture is becoming even more clear. And then there's other things that we're looking at and we're kind of scratching our head wondering, whoa, what does all this mean? Going to get to those 5 things I learned. And then after that, going to have a visit with DeMaurice Smith, the executive director of the NFL Players Association, as we talk about what's going on with the CBA and those negotiations, and if they're able to get a deal done to avoid a work stoppage following the 2020 season. But first, my 5 things I learned. Number 1 is that the pretenders and the contenders are starting to come into clarity here. And there's such things as snags, and there's such things as reality. I think a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, they lost their second straight game. I'm not worried about them, though. I do feel like they have issues. If you listen to Thursday's episode, Therese Paylor of Yahoo Sports and I talked about some of those issues, being their offensive line, their defense. All of that's being exposed because Patrick Mahomes is not healthy. We're seeing when he lacks that mobility, their offense is not as special as it is normally and potent as it is when he can do all his Houdini acts. But it's now being shown that they need to work on their offensive line. They've got to get better up front. They've got to get better on defense. They're giving up too many yards, especially against physical rushing attacks. But I think it's almost a blessing in disguise that Mahomes is a little bit hobbled, because it's letting them see that, okay, when we don't have him masking our deficiencies, we really have stuff we've got to work on. The issues with the pass protection is real. The issues with their defense, when they're not scoring all these points, the more of the focus is on how the defense can't stop anybody. So they've got to focus on that stuff, get it shored up, while they try to help Patrick Mahomes get healthy. He's got to take care of that ankle. He needs his teammates now, after he's been masking deficiencies for them for so long. They need to now mask his deficiencies and play better all around him. Meanwhile, a team like the Cowboys, there was a lot of hype about them. People thought they were Super Bowl ready. I did not see that, and that's why in my early season predictions, I did not have them making the playoffs. I have them just narrowly missing it. Now, of course, they still could, but they've lost 3 straight now. They lost to the Jets, who got their first win of the season. It seems like teams have figured out Kellen Moore and his play calling tendencies. Their defense has got some issues as well. The Cowboys have really got to get things figured out in a hurry. Fortunately for them, the Eagles lost as well to the Minnesota Vikings, who are now 4-2, and they have could wind up being a team that gets a wild card. I don't see them overtaking the Packers, but the Cowboys, they're not as formidable as we thought. Another team like the Browns, not ready for prime time. We're seeing that now. They were at home, couldn't get the win there. Of course, they went against a good team that I think could possibly be a playoff team. But the Browns have got to still work on this chemistry, cohesion, and everything. They've got a lot of pieces, but putting it all together and doing it at a high level is a different thing. Another team that's hit a snag right now are the Rams. I'm not worried about them long term. We're seeing here that if they don't have Todd Gurley, an effective Todd Gurley, that the pressure on Jared Goff is real. And the 49ers had the perfect recipe. They went after him. The Rams now, losing, two key games, divisional games, they have to worry. But there's probably a sense of urgency in that locker room now. I know Sean McVay, I know that coaching staff, they are going to work hard to try to figure out how to ease pressure on Goff, how to compensate while they're waiting for Gurley to get healthy again. And I think they're going to be okay, but they're hitting a snag. Fortunately for them, it's early in the season, just like with the Chiefs, early in the season, so they can go back to the drawing board and fix things. But some of these other teams, it's going to be a real struggle for them. Number 2 thing I learned as we were speaking about the Rams, that the 49ers are for real. That undefeated record is legit because of their defense. Yes, Jimmy Garoppolo is playing pretty well. Yes, they have a potent rushing attack and creative passing concepts, but their defense is the difference maker. The New England Patriots had the best defense in the league, but the 49ers are pretty freaking close. They get after the quarterback. They force turnovers. It's hard to run against them. It's hard to pass against them. They've got playmakers all over the place, and so the 49ers are going to be in the playoffs this year. We'll see if they're going to duke it out with the Rams for winning that division, but it's going to be a dogfight, I think, between the 49ers, the Rams, and the Seahawks in that division. Number 3 item here, that teams that should be contending for playoff spots that aren't are the Falcons and the Chargers. They are in real trouble. Dan Quinn losing once again, losing on the road to a rebuilding young team like the Cardinals. That should not happen. You've got a veteran head coach. You got a veteran roster. You should not be losing to a rookie head coach, rookie quarterback. Dan Quinn very well could be the next head coach that's fired. Jay Gruden was the first. Quinn could be the next. And the Chargers losing at home, and I know the home field advantage is subjective for them because they're in a transition period there. They don't really have a whole lot of real home field advantage, but you've got a roster of players that you should be able to play at a high level and should not be outdone by a team with their third string quarterback in the Steelers. So you wonder if they're going to be up for some changes if they don't live up to expectations. But right now, those are 2 teams that should be playoff contenders that look nowhere near playoff ready. Item number 4, that this is definitely the year of the young backup quarterback because as we talked about the Chargers there, Delvin Hodges, third string quarterback, undrafted rookie, stepping in for Mason Rudolph, who is stepping in for Ben Roethlisberger, leads the Steelers to a victory on the road. We saw Kyle Allen, Gardner Minshew, all of these young guys that you would figure aren't ready for prime time have no problem at all directing NFL offenses. I think some of it has to do with the fact that there's a triple up effect. We're seeing kids in high school now run spread offenses. We're seeing them pass 50 times a game in college. And so now they're getting to the NFL, and yes, it's a different game, a different brand, but they are used to throwing the ball a lot. It's not like the old days where you're handing off, and then you come to the NFL and you have to do a lot of passing. They're ready to throw the ball a lot. Offensive coordinators are creative. They're running concepts that are similar to what these kids ran in college, and they're positioning them for success. And so we're seeing a changing of the guard at quarterback. And, all this, when you see these young guys come in the games and play well, it just brings you back to the Redskins when you're scratching your head why Dwayne Haskins can't get on the field, why they can't give him a package that will position him to succeed. But again, we already know there's a lot wrong with the Redskins. And then lastly, my 5th thing, I am convinced after watching him in week 6 is that Lamar Jackson is going to be your MVP. It doesn't matter what kind of football you want him to play. He is capable of doing that. Last year, we thought that he was basically, people said he was a running back at the quarterback position. This year, we've seen him throw the ball, looking like a pro. We've seen him run the ball. Yesterday, I know it was against the Bengals, a struggling team, but the effectiveness, whether he's running the ball, passing the ball, Lamar Jackson is putting that team on his back and carrying them. They need to get things figured out with their defense so that way he's got more support, but this kid can do it all. tremendous growth out of him from year 1 to year 2. And again, I think he's going to be your MVP. That's my 5 things for this week. It's going to be interesting to see how this thing continues to play out. When I come back, like I said, I'm going to sit down with DeMaurice Smith, NFL Executive Director from the NFL Players Association. I went out with him and his team to Kansas City last week as he's been bouncing around the league, talking to players, updating them on the CBA negotiations, hearing from them, hearing their concerns, and it was very enlightening for me to hear about what these guys want out of the CBA, what their questions are, and the most pressing football business matters on their minds away from the games. So when we come back, catching up with D. Smith. It was last Tuesday. I was in Kansas City. D. Smith, for the last 5.5 weeks, was bouncing around, making his annual NFL tour, visiting with all 32 teams, hearing from them. He and his team of guys, educating them on, workers' comp situations, how to make sure that their injuries are covered for life. It's not on their insurance policies. If they file their workers' comp paperwork, the team's insurance policies will cover them for life, but they have to fill out that paperwork. Things like that. Educating them on how to prepare if there's a work stoppage. Educating them on the new CBA. And so, we talk a lot free agency and guaranteed contracts and things like that when you think about the business side of football, but there's a whole other side that these guys are really interested in. But anyway, let's hear from D. Smith now. When you talk to guys,
you don't mind walking, do you?
No, that's fine. Let's make sure that's not okay. When you talk to guys and you hear from players, what's their biggest concern that come out of these type of meetings? I know everybody kind of thinks that they're thinking guaranteed contracts or whatever, but what are you hearing from guys that they're most concerned about?
Not being too sarcastic, but you were there,
right?
So. What didn't you hear anybody talk about? Anybody talk about guaranteed contracts? No. That's not, I'm not going to say that it's not important to our guys, but our guys understand the difference between guaranteed money and a guaranteed contract.
Right.
And all of them understand that while the idea of a guaranteed, they understand now a couple of things. One, they understand that none of the CBAs guarantee contracts, right? Our CBA language is just like basketball or baseballs. They also know the history. They know that the landscape changed in the 1980s, 1990s in basketball when free agent players demanded guaranteed contracts, and then their contracts became guaranteed more out of a manner of custom than any language in their CBA.
Right.
But they also understand that while a guaranteed contract might be very good for an individual player, they also know that a certain number of guys get cut every year. If that player's contract is guaranteed, that's going to mean less money in the locker room next year, because that's going to be dead money for that team. So, for us, you were there. The beauty of talking to these guys is we've spent a lot of time, not just me, but more the team that works at the PA. We spent a lot of time just educating them about the business of football, and frankly, they understand the business better than most of our sports writers.
Right.
And so, I know that there's always this projection about what an NFL player is or how an NFL player thinks, but again, the takeaway that I always have is you sit in a team meeting like this, they probably have had happier days, right? But it's not like you walk into a locker room when a team has lost the previous week and everybody's mad and upset. No, when you walk in here, they want to know about the business of football. They want to know, how do I ensure that I've got health care for my injuries? They know now that if the league locks us out, they're going to cut off the insurance to their families. and when you have a young guy like Patrick Mahomes in the room, and he can talk about his father, who was a baseball player who went through the strike in 94, 95. Not every player has that much of a personal connection, but I think guys certainly understand now that a work stoppage can occur. I think more players understand the potential and the reality of that now than they did in 2009, 2010, because as much as I said it was going to happen, you had a certain number of players who would say, well, no, they're never going to shut this game down.
Right.
Well, would any owner shut this game down for a year or two in order to recoup percentage points of revenue, when those percentage points of revenue will be in excess of $150 million a year? Well, sure.
Yeah.
Because you could shut the game down if they recouped 2 or 3 percentage points, even 5 percentage points. They'd make up for the lost season in 3 years.
Right.
Now, it would screw the fans and certainly hurt the players and probably hurt our business. But the lesson to every one of these guys is our guys actually care more about the game of football than some of our owners do.
Right. Now, what's your level of optimism? I know
about what
the
about
message is
life?
that it's so close that it's close, but you're saying it's not exactly as close as what
is
about
optimism
as far
about
as
what?
that you guys can avoid a work stoppage.
Oh, the deal's
of
not
some
done.
kind. Right.
I don't have optimism. I don't have pessimism.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is we're talking, but we're far apart.
Right.
So I'm not sure there is a or should be optimism or pessimism. There's just the reality of where we are, and either the deal is done and you can relax and not prepare for a work stoppage, or the deal isn't done and you can't relax and you need to prepare for a work stoppage.
Gotcha. You talked about how guys are more educated this time around than last time.
Yeah,
I didn't say they're more. I
didn't say they're more educated.
They're
more aware.
More aware. There you go.
That of the likelihood of a work stoppage that I think guys were the last time.
Because how far in advance, how many years ago did you start laying the groundwork for right now?
For this?
To make sure they were.
18 months ago.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so 2 years ago, we started withholding their royalty payments 2 years ago.
Okay, gotcha. And so do you feel better just about your group, the conversations you have with them, and just the responsibility and just the way that they're having conversations with you to make sure they understand everything?
It's not so much that I have a better feeling as compared to anything else. I think that I know that our guys are understand the likelihood or the possibility of a work stoppage.
Right.
I don't think that there is a level of belief that it could never happen. Mm-hmm. And I know that our player leadership authorized us to start preparing for this 2 years ago. Right. So it's not so much that I feel better or worse. Staying in the moment, to use the one football phrase that I will use. But staying in the moment is just that I think that we are in a place where the guys understand the risk, they understand the potential upside, but they also understand that we're far apart.
Good deal. How glad will you be to be off the road?
I will be very, very happy. I think the only person now who really cares that I'm home is the dog, since our kids are gone. Yeah, our kids are gone and my wife's playing golf. Yeah. So other than that, the dog will be thrilled.
Good deal. Hey, D, thanks for your
awesome,
time, man.
Always a pleasure.
All right, I hope you found that interesting. I definitely learned a lot last week in my visit with them. I'm going to have a story that's coming out Tuesday about that trip in more detail. But I know that D is saying, until the deal's done, He's not optimistic. He's not pessimistic. But from talking to people on the owner's side of things, there definitely is a real sense of urgency to get this deal done. And so I believe that whether it's late this year or right after, the new year, they're going to get this deal done. It's going to be interesting to see how this thing is hammered out. But it looks like I wouldn't be surprised if there's an extended season. We could see them agree to a 17, 18 game season with a shortened preseason. It's gonna be interesting to see how they shape that thing. There's a lot of haggling back and forth. That's also going to trigger probably an adjustment with how they handle training camps or off-season workout programs to try to make sure they take care of the players' bodies and the wear and tear. Also, another item, I remember we talked about the CBA early in the podcast episodes with Lorenzo Alexander of the Buffalo Bills, but the talk about the length of contracts. We could see contracts shortened by a year. It'll be interesting to see if how they handle the fifth-year option, how they handle franchise tags, how they handle rookie contracts going forward. That's another item that's going to be very important. And then also the veterans minimums, the league minimum salaries, guys at the bottom of the roster. Yes, we know that the salary cap's going to go up, and these big deals that we're seeing with a lot of guaranteed money, those are going to continue to happen. But the players are really also, they want the younger guys, the guys at the bottom of the roster, to be better compensated as well. So that minimum could go up. The guys on the practice squad, their salaries could go up, just trying to figure out ways to make them more financially secure. All that stuff's going to be hammered out. I think that there's going to be concessions made on the part of the owners. Yes, the players will have to give some as well, but I think that the players are going to emerge from this CBA negotiation having a new collective bargaining agreement that puts them in a good standing financially, professionally, and that's going to continue to improve the brand of the NFL. We'll see what happens. Again, a lot can, progress or stall in these negotiations, but from talking to people on the owner side, there's definitely optimism, and talking to some players as well, they are optimistic. They are preparing, just as D and his team has been warning them, prepare for a work stoppage, but they feel optimistic as well. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Drop me an email, please, or send me a Twitter or something. Let me know what you think. Email is mjones@usatoday.com. Twitter and Instagram @ByMikeJones. And then I will be back here on Thursday as we look to Week 7 of the NFL action. Hope you guys have a great day.